Cool. Okay. Thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. We're going to move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Roy.
Okay, I'll just share Coach Mays' update. Said that the Lewisville girls won by 20 tonight. And the Marcus girls are ahead by 1, which was in the fourth quarter. So. Okay. Ready, Ms. Karen? Okay, board members under the superintendent's report, you received those reports. If there are any questions, I'd be here to answer those. You did receive the construction report, facility service report, technology update, and we have people here. Let me pause a moment, see if anyone has any questions on any of those. Okay, the next item we have is a little different. We want to have an opportunity to update on the district, state, and federal legislative action efforts, and board members have been working hard on this, along with Mr. Permetti, information officer. And let me jump to Amber. Why don't you and Julie take off with this?
All right, I know the hour grows late, and maybe this is the last thing we're all interested in at the moment, but I think it's kind of important for you to understand exactly what it is that we have been doing here, and that we are not just sitting idly by and wringing our hands and watching the legislature from afar as spectators, but rather are choosing to be as involved in the process as they will, I won't say allow us to be, because we are continuing to visit them whether they are interested in that or not. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of background. I've been on the board for 5.5 years, and so my advocacy emphasis has changed in that period of time. When I joined the board, we were in a high economic time, and we would go to Austin and we would argue for more money for LISD. We were in a fast growth situation. We needed buildings as fast as we could build them. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to those resources that might be coming away from somebody else if they were funneled toward LISD. I was worried about us. I was worried about us here in the district. And since that time, I have come to realize that the pie is only as big as the pie is, and that any time we were lobbying on the efforts on behalf of just Lewisville ISD, that was a little closed-minded way to do that, and that a better, more thorough way would be to lobby and advocate on behalf of all of the students in the state of Texas, and not just those that would benefit us here within our local cities and communities. So we could ask for extra things, and another thing that was different is we oftentimes were met with an aide as opposed to the actual elected official. So we've done several things to improve that relationship. We have offered and invited the legislators themselves into our district. We took them on a little tour. When they were in the off season, we rode them around on a bus. We showed them some of our campuses and showcased some of our staff and our personnel and our students and the fabulous things that are going on here each and every day. And we started to build those relationships with those legislators. Ms. Permetti has been a persistent person in insisting that if we elected officials are going to travel to Austin to visit with other elected officials, that it would behoove them to show up themselves and not deliver us a paid staff person, but deliver us elected officials themselves. And we remind them occasionally that their constituents that elect them and put them in that seat are the same constituents that have elected us and put us in this seat. And therefore we deserve the courtesy of their presence. So I compliment Karen on that. It makes me feel like I'm not just wasting my time in order to go and do that. So at any rate, we've realized that this is not an LISD problem that we have in the state of Texas. It's not a Denton County problem. It's affecting the entire state. And so we are going to continue to cultivate and nurture those relationships that are beneficial to all Texas students. The things that we asked Austin for, asked our legislators for, and let me just side note here to say that we did not just go visit the legislators that specifically represent areas of Lewisville ISD, but we targeted those individuals that make key decisions that affect public education funding. And again, Karen was very instrumental in getting us in the door of those individuals. They don't have to see us, really. They don't have to. And they chose to, and we persuaded them that that was in their best interest. So some of the things that we asked for when we went to visit our legislators, because it's a little depressing. We can't ask for more money. There is no money, as some of our students kindly pointed out. The deficit is grand in the state of Texas, and it is no less grand here for Lewisville ISD. So we asked them for things that would not necessarily cost them money. And we asked for items that we believe the district should have local control, because we believe that we as elected officials are accountable to you, our public. You elect us, therefore you have the opportunity to exercise your desires through casting your vote here at the local level. And that is the message that we sent to our legislators. So we talked to them about our calendar. We explained how we would like to have local control over our calendar and decide when is best for Lewisville ISD to start school and when it is best for Lewisville ISD to finish school. We talked to them about our effort to preserve jobs. We talked to them about possibly delaying the implementation of the STAR accountability system, because we communicated that in the time of a funding crisis is probably not the best time to be implementing a new system that is untried and could possibly lead to future expenditures that would need to be made, and there are no extra resources available. We agreed and offered to partner with them during this unprecedented funding time, when we all are going to need to figure out solutions to these problems and not treat each other as adversaries, but as individuals that are willing to cooperate on behalf of our students, because there is no room for sacrifice here when we're talking about our students and their academic progress, and their futures literally are held in the balance here, and we can't afford to be complacent about that. So we agreed that we would come back. We signed up and offered to provide testimony at any point in time that they were willing to give that. Happened by Dr. Roy's office today, and in the countdown of his tenure here, and he has only a few days left in his office, he was monitoring the subcommittee hearing that the Senate Finance Committee was having about the funding situation in public education and where those funds are going to go. So this is an active role that we are taking on, and I'm going to stop at this point and see if Julie wants to add anything before I go on to the federal. Is that it? Okay. All right. Now, the other thing that I had the opportunity to do was travel to Washington, D.C. last week. The National School Board Association offers a Federal Relations Network conference, and they invite school board members to come from across the country to essentially meet, get some training, learn how to advocate on the federal level, and then again visit Capitol Hill and visit the elected officials there that are in decision-making capacities about the federal dollars that we do receive. That is a minimal portion of our budget, but in this day and time, every dollar is very, very critical and very, very important. So there were about 800 people in attendance in that conference from different states, and we heard from many individuals who were pro-public education. Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan spoke to our group, and other elected officials that are very are committed to public education and to not seeing that be a place of sacrifice. And then ultimately I had an appointment with Dr. Michael Burgess, who represents most of Lewisville ISD. And I thought I wouldn't have a whole lot to talk to him about, because he understands our situation and he's pretty familiar with us and is not a stranger here to our district. But some good news came out that very night before. We heard that Dr. Burgess is co-authoring legislation that would reverse the Doggett Amendment. And I don't know how many of you are supremely familiar with that, but there's how much, Jay?
Over $800 million.
$800 million that's held hostage by the Lloyd-Doggett Amendment that Texas is not able to access. And Michael Burgess is working with some other individuals to attempt to garner some support to get Texas access to that $800 million that would be very critical at this point in time. So it's a very long answer to the question of what is Lewisville ISD doing besides sitting here and having discussions at the local level. And I wanted you all to be aware, and you fellow board members to know exactly what efforts have been made on our behalf here, and the forward-looking methods that we're going to use to continue to try to mitigate this problem from every angle that we have available to us. And if you have any other questions, Julie and I had the pleasure of visiting along with Karen and Dr. Roy, and Dr. Waddell was even able to join us on a couple of our visits and start forming those relationships with the legislators. And so we're not optimistic about the numbers, but we are optimistic about the relationships, and that is going to ultimately benefit the district in the future.
Okay, thank you, Amber. I'll